sort of every important aspect of running and planning a trial. And I'll never forget the presentation, I guess, about a year ago with you and George Sopko about a trial come to be called Stitch, because, I mean, I think that was a hard selling job, but I don't think it ever could have been sold without you. So, you know, that was very impressive. Not only, however, will we miss your multifaceted scientific contributions, but also certain personal attributes. And what are we going to do without somebody to walk around barefoot? You realize that your new institute, you may be called upon to be a little bit different kind of role model. And so, you know, anytime, remember, anytime that job situation becomes too constricting, all you have to do is walk across the street to visit us. But we will put a condition on that. If you're going to walk across the street, you must do it barefoot in any kind of weather. But do come.
When I first came to NHLBI 12 years ago, Dean was, well, kind of a kid. And it's really nice, it's wonderful to see him have matured into a senior colleague whose judgment statistically and administratively I could always rely on. One side of me is really proud that he was chosen for this new position at NIAID. And I like to think a little of it, at least indirectly, is my responsibility. I wasn't trying to get rid of him, mind you, but I hope that his experience here led to his growth. The other side of me is, of course, terribly sorry to see him go, and I'll miss him. I'll miss the banter, both the statistical and the other banter. Dean's been a fine colleague and indeed a very, very smart one. At least he'll be across the street, and given his description of the facilities right now, I think he'll be on our side of the street pretty frequently, at least in the beginning. In the past few weeks, Dean's come to my office a bit hesitantly and asked for some help. He asked for position descriptions and KSAs, and I've been glad to give them to him. When he came to measure the length of my table and started looking longingly at OBR's books, we began to wonder if OBR was about to be cloned. And since he asked me for some help, I've decided to give some unsolicited advice. I must say, Jeff, you did steal one of my lines, but I have a lot of them. So one of them, it was always wear shoes to meetings and socks. Two, there's a Yiddish word, schmooze, and it technically means talk, but it really means chew the fat. It's more than talk. It means talk a lot. Dean, a big part of your job now is going to be to schmooze. And you have to say something more than, yeah. Third piece of advice is expect the unexpected. And I note that the first week I was at OBR, an entire window fell out of its frame to the outside of the Federal Building. And when that happens, you're in charge. 4, sometimes you'll have unpleasant things to say to staff members. Remember to give people hell either in your office or in theirs. Know when to close the door, and know when to take out the tissues. This job you've taken is not always going to be a bed of roses. So when you write an angry memo, it's best to sit on it till the next day. Sleep overnight, until before you send it out, because overnight you get a little bit more sane. 6, the meetings you have control over should not last longer than an hour. 7, do not permit toys on the premises that could take out an eye. 8, be careful to whom you tell jokes about sexually transmitted diseases. 9, don't be afraid to hire someone who's smarter than you. 10, when a clinician complains about a statistician, don't fall into the trap that it must be the statistician's fault. 11, when someone resigns to take another position, don't think it's your fault. And 12, don't tell your ex-boss that your office is bigger than hers, even a little bit. So in closing, I have a few things to present. First of all, we want to make sure you don't forget us. This is, we have some local talent in OBR. He's still a kid. It's his birthday party. He's starting to paper on the floor.
This is like BRB, as it was called then, circa 1989, I would guess.
Yes.
And this is the OBR, circa 1998, I guess. And then there are other pictures along the side. Here's a famous one of me, barefoot and all, reading a magazine here.
You'll notice he has more hair in that picture.
Well, that's because I have a beard there. I'll put this over here so y'all can look at it.
Now, this is something that, it's not a real gift, but it's just something we won't need anymore.
Well, thanks. You shouldn't have. These are green pens, and I think about 10 years ago, I like to use colors. You know, you've seen there, and I would draw these pictures or diagrams with maybe black, red, blue, pencil. But I needed more color, so they had a big stink about needing green pens. And since that happened,
I think you said you had to go and buy green pens.
maybe I did that, you
And I
know, to
said,
make my case
"No,
even more
really."
important. So anyway, I think I'll be all set for a year or two with these 12 green pens.
Okay, now, this is the real gift. You know you're gonna have a lot of important meetings.
Are these blue pens? Oh.
Now, I have to tell you, this is slightly unique, because after all, we had to be sure it worked.
It's some kind of electronic gadget.
Oh man, I want one of those.
It's a Sony clip. Probably know what it is.
Oh, Dean.
Plie.
It's a PDA.
And it's got a color picture on it.
Which goes with its color screen. It's still in there, it's under.
So I can
it's
watch
in there.
TV on boring meetings?
Dean, this is what we have been asking you to use.
This is it. It's not very big.
I'll try not to drop it.
Yeah, don't drop it, and don't lose the stylus. Find the on button, it's the first I do test.
No, no. This looks very nice. Oh, look at this. This will be great, yeah. I guess I'll have the kind of job where I need this from now on.
And this last thing goes with it, unless, just in case you don't have enough gimmicks already.
Okay.
You need this. And you're putting your stuff on the surface,
Yeah, I know.
which is probably not
Focus, Catalog.
So you get the rest of the gimmicks. So, in closing, I wish you the best of luck, and don't let this job go to your head.
Well, thanks for coming. It's been a long time since I've worked at NHLBI. I mean, that I've been working at NHLBI. I first came here in 1988, which was during the Cold War. I was working at a think tank for the Navy, and we were flush with funds. Reagan was president. Poison had the #1 hit. You know, I'm trying to set the scene here. But I knew that I didn't want to spend the rest of my life working in the defense industry. And so I decided to try and get a new job. And I looked around, and I decided to apply at the Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute. So in February of 1988, I walk up Wisconsin Avenue, and I'm looking for the federal building. And I look at this nondescript kind of tacky building, and I'm thinking, where are the columns? Where are the eagles? None of that was there. But then I looked inside, I saw Ronald Reagan's picture on the wall, and I knew that I was at the right place. The interview that day went pretty well, and Janet Wittes, who was branch chief at the time, was pretty keen on hiring me. And I was tepid about coming here, actually, at first. I thought there was a lot of clinical trial work to be done here, which I wasn't really sure I wanted to do, and also that this would involve a lot of sample size calculation, which I don't really like to do either. But as time went by, I found I couldn't really say no to Janet. She would come up and say, "Oh, Dean, you know, everyone loves you. Why don't you come over here? We have all these interesting things to work." And I'd say, "Oh, yeah, that's nice, Janet." And at the end, she would say, "Now, you have to fill out this form." And I'd think, "Okay, I'll fill out a form. I'll placate her, and I'll delay the inevitable," so on. And at some point, it became clear in her mind, I guess in my mind as well, that I was going to come here. And so Janet's persistence, I think, is the real reason that I ended up coming here initially. And when I came here, into the federal building, my office space wasn't that great, as you might remember. And I didn't have any bookcases. And so what I decided to do, rather than complain about it, was try to look pathetic. And so I ended up getting a whole bunch of cardboard boxes, stacking them up, and then they looked a little too straight to me, so I moved them around a little so they looked even more precarious. And I put all my books in there, and sure enough, looking pathetic ended up getting me some new bookcases. So that worked out for me as well. Now, you may have noticed that I don't wear shoes a lot, though I am wearing some now. There's actually a story behind that. When I first interviewed here, as I mentioned, I came from the defense establishment. So I went into my interview, I had on a pinstripe suit, I had wingtips, I had a white shirt and a power tie, and I gave a talk on fire control radar, which is a radar that they use to direct missiles on naval ships. So Janet, you know, liked me, but she thought I think it was a little too formal, perhaps. Maybe I was a little too much into defense. But she ended up talking to one of my former professors at Carnegie Mellon, who, you know, gave a recommendation about me to her. And he said, you know, Dean's a good researcher and so on, and we liked having him here, and he was smart and all that. But he tended to not wear shoes very much. And so when Janet heard that, she felt much more comfortable hiring me to fit in. And since then, I felt obliged to not wear shoes all the time because of the expectations that I've had here for me. But I've enjoyed working here a long time. The colleagues that I've had here have been really great. And I've thought now and then about leaving NHLBI, and I always would think, why would I want to leave? And I couldn't think of a reason. I've had great colleagues to work with, and I've worked with many people in the Office of Biostatistics Research and also in Building 10 and in the extramural side of things as well. And I've had time to work on the things that I like, and I've had time to do methodology research. And I would think, you know, this is really a special place that that if I would go to someplace else, it would probably be not as good, that it would be ordinary in a way. And for that reason, I never really seriously thought about leaving. But, you know, time marches on, and I've been here 14 years, and at one point I thought, I've been here so long, you know, I have to make a decision about whether I'm going to move eventually or stay here for the rest of my career. And this opportunity at NIAID came up, and I felt like this was a golden opportunity for me, and that I should at least try to take the position. And so I interviewed there like a year and a half ago, and I'm finally leaving tomorrow.